Is Rome a civilizing force? This is a quick video reviewing historians' views of Romanization. To begin with, we have Tacitus in the 1st century AD. He wrote the book The Annals in 117 AD, which is a traditional view of Romanization from Tiberius to Nero. Quote, "All this in their ignorance they called civilization when it was a part of their servitude." Here, Tacitus was reinforcing the conventional view that Rome was a civilizing force, and this was talking about the subjugation of the individuals in the provinces in order to submit to the will of Rome. Quote, "To ravage, to slaughter, to usurp under false titles they call empire." Here, Tacitus was concerned about the corruption and balance of power in the empire. Hence, this approach took Romanization as basically neutral, whereby Tacitus stated, "Hence, my purpose is to relate without either anger or zeal." As you may know, no one is bias-free. We all have our own filters, perceptions, schemas that cloud the way we view the world, that we perceive the world. And even though Tacitus might say that he is without bias, he does believe that Rome is a civilizing force, as made evident from the first quote that I quoted. In addition, we have the Venerable Bede in the 7th century. This is of course after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The Venerable Bede saw Romanization as represented through the establishment of the Roman Church, the Latin Church. Bede was influenced by Orosius, who wrote Geographic Introduction, Eusebius on chronology, and Cicero on about rhetoric. The intention of Bede was to teach morality and proselytize the faith, the Christian faith. Bede's work includes Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written in the 8th century. And he basically believed in divine providence. Quote, "God rewarded good kings with victory and punished bad ones with earthly calamity." He also stated famously, "When Rome falls, the world shall fall." As you can see, he has an added emphasis on the idea of Romanization as a way of Christianizing and civilizing savage peoples or barbarians. And thus the church, the Roman church, was synonymous with the civilizing power of Rome. In addition, Edward Gibbon in the 18th century wrote the book The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire in the year 1776 to 1788. The book spanned 6 volumes. Gibson was a forerunner empiricist, but however lacked information, and he's a disillusioned Catholic. Quote, he stated that history is indeed little more than the register of the crimes, follies, and misfortunes of mankind. He didn't really have a good perception of what history is all about, and he blamed Christianity on decadence and sided with Enlightenment views. He also stated that, quote, "to challenge the nature of civilization, and it could progress through the curbing of priest-ridden superstition," according to Warren. And yeah, he believed that the rise of Christianity brought intolerance and division in the Roman Empire, leading to its eventual downfall. John E. Millais
Mayday
painting. This is a Victorian era view that perpetuated the idea of Britain being the inheritors of Rome. Britain, epitomized as a red-haired lady in this painting, was hugging an olive-skinned Roman officer. This is a romantic notion of a common bond between Roman occupying forces and the British Empire as the successors. Likewise, in that time period, Theodor Mommsen in the 19th century wrote the book Corpus, Inscriptionum, Latinarum, 1863. This was a body of Latin inscriptions from stone, iron, and other enduring materials that relied on philological principles and the new field of archaeology. Well, the growing new field of archaeology. Mommsen stated the Italians possessed of civilizing and assimilating to themselves the nations susceptible of culture. As you can see from this perspective, Mommsen believed that Romanization was susceptible and most suitable to those of the European race, believing that thus the Europeans hold the torch of civilization. Gaelic nations received from the common mother endowments different from those of its Italian, Germanic, and Hellenic sisters. Gaelic meaning Celtic. Mommsen believed that those of the British Isles, though having common shared history, let's say, with Italians, Germans, Greeks, holds more of that idea of civilization passed down from the Romans, let's say. Mommsen also
had the idea
of jurisprudence, or an idea of connecting law and history together, since many laws were derived from the Latin tradition. And yeah, he was influenced by the growing field of archaeology. Another interesting individual is Francis Haverfield in the 19th century. He was a protege of Mommsen and wrote the book The Romanization of Roman Britain in 1905. Haverfield was the first individual to shift from Rome itself to the provinces. Quote, "In the lands that he had sheltered, Roman civilization had taken strong root. Haverfield was influenced by Edwardian or Victorian notions of progress, and Britain was seen as the successor and bringer of civilization." Haverfield stated, "It was possible, it was easy to Romanize these Western peoples." Haverfield believed that Western Europeans were more susceptible to Romanization and thus have the mantle of responsibility in civilizing the world. Haverfield also said that native elements succumbed almost wholesome to the conquering foreign influence. He believed that in the time of the Romans were just so sophisticated in their culture that the local people, the Britons, just had to and wanted to become Romans. They just succumbed to this. And thus Haverfield formulated the traditional process of Romanization, whereby there are post-conquest societies where tribal savages lived, and then through Roman policy, this increased the Roman population, and thus through veteran colonies, as in settling soldiers into these newly conquered territories, the provinces became Romanized as a result. In addition, another historian is David Mattingly, who is influential in the 20th and this century. He's a post-colonialist, and he created the book Imperialism, Power and Identity in 2011. Mattingly stated that native recipients of Roman culture were largely denied an active role, as in he's taking more of the colonists' view of Rome, and he linked key similarities between Rome and the provinces to British Raj and India, how the Brits dealt with their Indian subjects. And of course, Britain did not have a good track record. The British did not have a good track record in the subcontinent. As you can see, Mattingly looks at this from a bottom-up perspective as opposed to a top-down. Quote, "The search for discrepant experiences directs us to look across the social spectrum." He agrees with other historians like Greg Wolfe, whereby the elites adopted Roman culture and this had a trickle-down effect, causing the lower classes to then adopt Roman culture because the higher ups were also doing so. It was just the new trend, let's say, the new fashion to be Roman, to be civilized. Mattingly also focused on discrepant identity, whereby individuals carried experiences of Roman culture and diversity, such as, for example, ethnicity was one form of identity that societies constructed. Richard Hingley, a 21st century postmodernist, wrote the book Globalising Roman Culture, which linked the Roman world to contemporary society and globalization. I should probably point out that postmodernism is the idea or the concept or a movement that asserts connection between ancient and the modern world and believes that the depiction of the past can't be value-free, as in can't be objective, that history is entirely subjective according to Hingley. Hingley also stated that Roman identity was projected through the adoption and adaptation of material culture. Hingley also stated that Rome placed a particular premium upon the adoption of Roman culture by local elites. So in a way agreeing with Mattingly again about the elites adopting the culture and then the rest having to follow suit. But yeah, Hingley argued for a complex model whereby the provincial elites sought to appease their own concerns and hence enabling some Roman influence to occur which helped to suit them. And thus Hingley, through archaeology, looked at architecture, coinage, literature and language, looking at the material objects, artifacts of that time period. Greg Wolfe, a 21st century historian who wrote the book Tales of the Barbarians in 2011. It focused on decolonization, and Wolfe had concepts like middle ground, whereby in a period of initial contact between Greco-Roman and foreign cultures, information exchange occurred. Wolfe approached with sensitivity on ethnography about cultural plurality and identity in the empire. As in, even though they adopted the idea of Romanization, people of, let's say, from certain provinces had different regional differences, let's say. They retained some of that unique identity. Wolfe also introduced the idea of epistemic violence, which is the idea that there is a break created by colonization between pre- and post-conquest societies, and the author used new terms like these to explain how people feel about the change in their worldview. So as in, obviously there will be individuals who lived in between the two time periods whereby they fought against the Roman incursion and then they became subjects of the Roman Empire. And yeah, the West was seen by Rome as terra nullius, whereby no one owned that land, and thus this helped to bring about the creation of new histories in the Roman West. Wolfe wanted to give voice to those whom he continued to call barbarians. And yeah, this is Rome and the provinces and the idea of Romanization, on whether Rome is a civilizing force. It's quite interesting actually about this discussion. So yeah, thanks for watching.